I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window of my downtown apartment, sunlight brushing against the soft wool of my cream-colored blazer. The city hummed beneath me, the usual chaos softened by the hum of air conditioning and the faint aroma of roasted coffee beans from the cafe downstairs. My phone buzzed on the marble counter, and I glanced down. A message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. "Are you still coming to the party? We didn't think you'd accept." I let out a slow laugh, the kind that tastes like irony and triumph combined. Those people, the ones who had laughed when I suggested my ideas, the ones who shrugged off my invitations, were suddenly reaching out. I had imagined this moment countless times, but the reality made my pulse quicken with anticipation. I brushed a strand of hair from my face and felt the smooth silk of my blouse against my skin. I sipped my coffee, savoring the bitter warmth. The thought of seeing them, all confident smiles and forced politeness, stirred a mixture of pride and something else. Vindication, yes, but also a quiet sadness. Years of hidden victories, painstaking nights, and subtle achievements had led me here. And now, the girl they thought would fade quietly into the background was about to step into the spotlight they had denied me. I still remember that summer afternoon like it was yesterday, even though it had been nearly a decade. I was 19, fresh out of college, buzzing with ideas and dreams that seemed too big for our modest suburban home. I had invited my family to my first art exhibition, an intimate showcase in a local gallery. I had imagined their pride, their smiles, the hugs I'd get. Instead, I was met with hesitation and dismissal. "Why do you need to spend so much on something so unnecessary?" my older brother, Ethan, had asked, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. Mom's sigh had been heavier than words. "It's fine, sweetie, but maybe it's not the right time. People are busy. Don't expect too much." I had felt my chest tighten, the lump forming in my throat, my fingers trembling around the gallery brochure. I wanted to scream, to tell them that this was my chance, my moment, but all I could manage was a quiet, "Okay, I understand." The sting of rejection lingered, sharper than any critique I had ever received from strangers. That evening, I had sat alone on my bedroom floor, surrounded by sketches, paints, and canvases. The soft glow of the desk lamp made the colors in my latest painting shimmer. That's when Grandma June's voice echoed in my memory. "Hannah, the world doesn't always clap when you deserve it. But that doesn't mean you stop dancing." She had handed me a small silver locket years before, whispering, "Carry this when you need a reminder. Your worth isn't measured by their applause." I held the locket tight, tracing its delicate engraving, letting her words anchor me. That night, I made a decision that would define the next decade. I would succeed on my own terms, whether they celebrated me or not. And so, I began, quietly, steadily, fiercely, building a life they didn't see, a version of me that would not need anyone else's validation. That moment of rejection became the spark, the unspoken fuel that would carry me through every late night, every struggle, every triumph yet to come. I threw myself into work like a diver plunging into deep water, uncertain at first, but determined to rise. My first real mentor, Clara Reynolds, noticed me at a small design firm where I'd started as an intern. She was sharp, exacting, and intimidating, yet she had a way of believing in people in a way that made them believe in themselves. "Hannah," she said one morning, adjusting her glasses, "stop apologizing for your ideas. If you want to be seen, you have to make them impossible to ignore." Her words became my mantra. I stayed late nights, learning the intricacies of branding, design, and client management. I studied finance in stolen moments, calculated risks, and started investing in small projects that I could manage independently. I remember the nights when my apartment smelled of instant noodles and coffee, when exhaustion tugged at my bones, and doubt whispered in every shadowed corner. But I refused to let it define me. My first breakthrough came unexpectedly. A boutique hotel wanted to revamp its interiors, but had been turned down by bigger firms. They agreed to meet with me, a young designer no one had heard of. I poured my vision into every sketch, every color palette, every presentation board. When they said yes, I felt a rush unlike anything I'd known, a quiet validation, earned without their family's applause. I kept my progress largely to myself. Social media updates were vague. My family never invited over for a look at my success moment. The satisfaction was private, intimate, almost sacred. Each small win, my first major client, a profitable freelance contract, a feature in a regional magazine, was another stitch in the life I was weaving for myself. I moved into a loft studio downtown, its walls now lined with pieces I had created or curated, each one a milestone. I had financial independence, recognition in my field, and a circle of colleagues and friends who truly believed in me. Yet the thought of them, the people who had dismissed me, never left entirely. I imagined the looks on their faces if they ever glimpsed this world I had built quietly, meticulously, away from their expectations. And so I waited, not with malice, but with patience. I knew the time would come when the universe, in its quiet, ironic way, would put me in the spotlight they had denied me. That moment was approaching, and when it arrived, I would be ready, not just to be seen, but to command the room with everything I had quietly built for years. Every struggle, every sleepless night, every moment I had chosen to believe in myself over their approval had prepared me for this. And the best part? They had no idea. The evening arrived with a quiet tension I could almost taste. I had chosen the venue carefully, a rooftop gallery I had rented for a private event, its glass walls revealing the glittering skyline, soft lights reflecting off sleek modern furniture, and walls adorned with my curated works, each piece a testament to years of hard work and vision. They arrived fashionably late, as expected. My parents, my brother Ethan, a few distant relatives, all dressed in the uniform of casual sophistication, the kind that tried too hard to mask judgment with smiles. I watched from behind the bar, swirling a glass of sparkling water, pretending to adjust the napkins on the table while my heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and quiet amusement. "Where is she?" my mother whispered, scanning the room. "She's around," Ethan replied, though the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. I stepped forward then, deliberately, letting the soft heel of my shoes tap against the polished hardwood floor. Every eye turned toward me, and for the first time in years, the room was still. They expected the timid girl, the one who had doubted herself, the one whose ideas had been dismissed as impractical. Instead, they saw me, confident, poised, radiant in a sleek navy dress that seemed to belong to a woman who had conquered her world. I allowed a slow smile to play across my lips, a subtle invitation for them to take it all in. The skyline reflected in their wide eyes, the gallery lights highlighting the curated elegance of every corner. I gestured casually toward a series of works on the walls. "These are some of the projects I've been working on over the past few years," I said, my voice calm, deliberate, every syllable measured. Their jaws tightened as they took it in. Each piece told a story of struggle, creativity, and victory. The boutique hotel lobby I had designed, now in full-scale prints, shimmered under the soft lighting. The magazine feature they had ignored sat proudly framed on a console. My first independent installation, a piece that had earned national recognition, dominated an entire wall. "Wait, you did all of this?" Ethan asked, his voice cracking slightly. "Yes," I said, letting the word hang. "And more." My parents exchanged glances, shame and awe mingling in their expressions. We had no idea," my mother stammered. I smiled, a mixture of warmth and controlled triumph. "You didn't see because you refused to invite me in when it mattered. But here I am, nonetheless." For a moment, the room was silent except for the distant hum of the city below. Then, slowly, disbelief gave way to questions, awkward apologies, tentative praise. I let them speak, watched the realization settle over them. They were seeing, perhaps for the first time, that the girl they had underestimated was not just surviving, she was thriving, and she had done it on her own terms. This was more than a reveal, it was a reclamation. Every doubt, every dismissive remark, every withheld invitation had led me here, standing tall, commanding respect without having to demand it. And in that moment, I understood the quiet satisfaction of vindication, not revenge, but undeniable, radiant proof that I had always belonged in the spotlight. The room was quiet now, the earlier shock settling into a tense anticipation. I could feel the shift in the air, the subtle recognition that I was no longer the girl they thought they knew. I straightened my posture, letting the confidence in my voice do the work words alone could not. I want to be clear, I began, letting my gaze meet each of theirs, that this isn't about punishment. It's about boundaries, growth, and respect, things I didn't always feel from you in the past. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. Boundaries? He asked cautiously. Yes, I said. For instance, I've worked too hard to let old patterns repeat. If you want to be a part of my life now, there are conditions. First, honesty. No more dismissing or belittling my decisions. Second, self-reflection. Each of you must acknowledge the ways your words or inaction affected me and commit to change. My parents swallowed hard, their expressions a mix of guilt and uncertainty. I softened slightly. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for effort, for awareness, for a willingness to grow. If you can't do that, then it's better to step back than to repeat old cycles of hurt. I turned toward Ethan, whose jaw was still tight. And you, brother, this isn't just about the past. You have your own potential. Stop comparing, stop undermining, and support what you can. Not because it benefits me, but because it benefits you. I let the words sink in, then walked slowly to a small table where my silver locket rested, the one Grandma June had given me years ago. I picked it up, holding it in the palm of my hand. This is my reminder of worth, courage, and self-respect. I want you all to understand that the people who doubted me were never wrong to challenge me, but I have chosen to rise above. If you want to be here, you must honor that. Not just for me, but for yourselves. The air was heavy, but the tension had shifted. I was no longer seeking validation. I was setting the rules for engagement. I could see the wheels turning in their minds, the silent processing of everything they had ignored or dismissed. I had offered them a chance, not as a favor, but as a test of character. By the time the evening drew on, the first signs of change were visible. Apologies were offered, tentative but genuine. Questions were asked, not to undermine but to understand. For the first time in years, I felt the power in my own hands, a balance of authority and compassion, firmness and grace. I realized then that this was more than a personal victory. It was an opportunity to redefine relationships, to transform old wounds into new growth. And in doing so, I reclaimed the narrative that had been written for me, without my consent. Weeks had passed since that night, and the echoes of it still lingered in my apartment, in the quiet spaces where sunlight hit the wooden floors and on the shelves lined with my accomplishments. The tension that had once shadowed every conversation with my family had begun to soften. Ethan had started attending a leadership workshop, one he admitted he never would have tried before. My parents had begun volunteering at the local community center, something they had shrugged off in the past as too much effort. And though they weren't perfect, the willingness to change, to listen, and to support, not just me but themselves, was unmistakable. I held the silver locket from Grandma June in my hand one morning, feeling the cool metal against my palm. Her words echoed as clearly as ever. Your worth isn't measured by their applause. But now I realized something deeper. My worth had always existed independently, but the real triumph was in how I could extend a hand without lowering myself, how I could witness growth in others without compromising my own standards. Looking around my loft, at the walls adorned with creations born of sweat, sleepless nights, and relentless persistence, I felt a quiet pride, not the loud, brash kind, but a warmth that filled the spaces where doubt had once lived. I had endured pain, rejection, and underestimation, yet here I was, thriving on my own terms, radiant in ways they had never imagined. Sometimes they would visit the studio, hesitant at first, and then with tentative smiles. And each time, I saw the subtle shifts, the curiosity, the respect, the acknowledgement that they were witnessing someone they once thought would falter. And I let them see, fully, without apology or restraint. The locket rested on my desk, catching the morning light. I traced its delicate engraving with my finger, a reminder that the journey had been mine, from the girl trembling in her parents' living room to the woman commanding rooms without ever raising her voice. And I whispered to myself, softly but firmly, as if speaking to anyone who doubted they could rise above. I am seen, I am strong, and I am unstoppable. In that clarity, I understood the true meaning of the title, of the journey, and of myself. They refused my invite, but I became the star guest of my own life.